It was late, and the sun had slipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the winding highway that seemed to stretch endlessly ahead. I had been driving for what felt like an eternity, my mind exhausted and fatigued. Just as I rounded a bend, I spotted a lone figure on the roadside, thumb raised in hope. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. The hitchhiker was a young man, likely in his late 20s. His worn jacket seemed as traveled as he was. His scruffy beard framed a face with eyes that sparkled with gratitude. And something else, something unsettling that I couldn't quite place.
"Thanks for stopping,"
he said as he slid into the passenger seat. We exchanged pleasantries while I resumed driving, but the conversation quickly took a darker turn. He recounted mysterious encounters he'd had while traveling solo, strange people and inexplicable happenings. I chuckled nervously, attempting to dismiss his tales as exaggerations. Yet a chill crept up my spine when he recounted a story about a woman he met in a diner who vanished without a trace. "People don't just disappear," I said, forcing a smile. He leaned in closer, his eyes glinting with a peculiar intensity.
"You'd be surprised. Sometimes they just don't want to be found."
As we drove deeper into the night, a sense of unease settled over me. The road was deserted, flanked by trees that loomed like shadowy sentinels. I glanced at him. He seemed lost in thought, gaze fixed out the window. Trying to lighten the mood, I asked about his destination. He merely shrugged.
"Anywhere but here,"
he replied. The atmosphere grew heavier and I suddenly felt trapped in my own car. "You know, I think I'll drop you off at the next town," I said, striving to keep my voice steady. He turned to me slowly, a smirk creeping across his face.
"Walty, don't you want to hear the rest of my stories?"
I forced a laugh, but my heart raced. As we passed a sign heralding a small town, I flicked on my blinker. His expression darkened.
"You really don't want to do that?"
he said, his tone turning icy. My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure.
"Trust me,"
he replied.
"This road has a way of keeping people."
Panic gripped me as I pressed the accelerator, desperate to reach the town. Suddenly, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, growing closer. The hitchhiker's words echoed ominously. I glanced at him. He was unfazed. As the car behind me honked, I veered into the town's outskirts, heart pounding. The hitchhiker chuckled softly.
"Guess you're lucky tonight,"
he murmured. He opened the door and slipped out into the shadows, disappearing. Moments later, the car behind me slowed and stopped beside me. A patrol car. The officer approached, concerned, and asked if I was all right. I nodded, grateful. My luck had held for now. When I reached the viewpoint, I parked the car and stepped out to admire the breathtaking panorama. But despite the natural beauty, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that I was being watched. I tried to shrug it off, snapping a few photos before heading back toward my car. That's when I noticed a small, dilapidated town just beyond the trees, a place that hadn't appeared on any map I'd checked. Curiosity got the better of me, and I drove toward the town. It was eerily quiet, the streets deserted save for a few flickering porch lights casting ghostly shadows. I rolled down my window to feel the cool night air, and that's when I saw him, a figure emerging from the shadows. An older man with a weathered face approached my car, a polite yet unnerving smile stretching across his lips.
"Lost, are you?"
he inquired, his voice gravelly and worn. I hesitated, unsure how to respond. "Just taking a look around. Is this place, inhabited?"
"Oh, we're here."
he replied, gesturing vaguely to the empty surroundings.
"Just not many visitors."
A chill ran down my spine at the way he watched me, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. Instinct screamed at me to leave. "Thanks, but I should be heading back," I said, trying to maintain composure. As I turned the car around, more figures emerged from the gloom, people standing silently, their eyes fixed on me. Panic surged. I slammed on the gas, tires screeching as I raced back toward the main road. But the trees seemed alive, closing in, the path narrowing with every twist and turn. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I saw headlights behind me, gaining fast. My heart pounded in my chest. In desperation, I took another wrong turn. Just then, like a beacon of hope, a sign for the highway appeared. I veered onto the main stretch, breathless and shaking, the figures disappearing in my wake, but their eerie stares etched in my mind. I drove for miles, not daring to stop until I reached the safety of a well-lit gas station. Shaking, I filled up my tank, avoiding eye contact with the attendant. That town haunted me, a chilling reminder that some places are best left unexplored. The road ahead felt less like a path to adventure and more like a labyrinth of lurking dangers. The sun dipped below the horizon as I navigated a narrow country road, eager to escape the city for a weekend of hiking. My playlist blared through the speakers, filling me with the thrill of adventure. Rounding a bend, I spotted a sign for a scenic overlook, a perfect spot to stretch my legs and snap a few photos. I parked and stepped into the cool evening air. The view was breathtaking. The last light of day cast a golden hue over the dense forest below. After capturing the moment with my camera, a nearby trail caught my eye, beckoning me to explore deeper into the woods. I felt invigorated, the peaceful rustle of leaves calming my mind as I wandered further. Lost in thought, I didn't notice how much time had passed until I checked my watch. It was getting late. Turning back, I realized the trail seemed different. The trees appeared taller, their shadows deeper. Panic began to creep in. I quickened my pace, calling out, "Hello?" But only my echo answered, amplifying my anxiety. I cursed my carelessness for not marking the path better. As darkness enveloped the forest, every sound, the crack of branches, the whisper of leaves, felt amplified and ominous. I fumbled with my phone, praying for a signal. Nothing. My heart raced as I stumbled along, each step feeling heavier. Suddenly, a rustling behind me made me freeze, straining my eyes in the dim light. A figure emerged, a man dressed in dark clothes standing eerily still.
Lost?
He asked, his voice smooth but unsettling. Yeah, I stammered, forcing a smile. Just trying to find my way back.
Not many people come this way at night.
He said, stepping closer.
You should be careful. The woods can be dangerous.
Thanks for the advice, I replied, trying to sound casual as I turned to leave.
Where are you going?
He asked, his tone suddenly sharper. I didn't answer, picking up my pace as panic surged. Footsteps followed, matching my urgency. I veered down a different path, adrenaline fueling my flight. The underbrush snagged at my clothes, branches clawing at my skin. I stumbled into a small clearing, desperate for an escape. My heart pounded as I scanned for a way out. A faint light flickered in the distance. It had to be my car. I sprinted toward it, the man's footsteps fading behind me. Reaching my car, I jumped inside and locked the doors, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. I started the engine and peeled away, the headlights slicing through the darkness. In the rearview mirror, I saw him at the edge of the woods, calmly watching me. Though I'd escaped this time, the woods held secrets, and I'd learned the hard way that some paths should never be taken alone. The highway stretched before me, a well-traveled path I had taken countless times. This weekend promised a reprieve, a remote cabin getaway to escape the chaos of everyday life. But fate had other plans. Somewhere along the drive, a sign appeared, beckoning with promises of breathtaking mountain views. My curiosity got the better of me, and I veered off the main road, seeking a little adventure. The road narrowed swiftly, dense trees closing in, creating an almost suffocating canopy overhead. I brushed aside the unease that crept in, chalking it up to the isolation and unfamiliarity of the detour. The road twisted and turned, weaving through towering pines and steep hillsides. Mesmerized by the beauty around me, I barely noticed the sun dipping behind the mountains, casting long shadows that stretched ominously across my path. After a few miles, I stumbled upon a small clearing. The view was nothing short of stunning. I parked and stepped out, letting the cool air wash over me as I took in the expansive vista. But something odd caught my eye. A dilapidated cabin, partially hidden by the trees. My curiosity flared once more, and despite a chill creeping into the air, I approached the cabin. The windows were caked with grime, and the door hung slightly ajar, inviting yet foreboding. Peering inside, I found nothing but darkness, a hollow shell of neglect and decay. Just as I turned to leave, a noise startled me. I spun around to find a man emerging from the trees, his clothes ragged, eyes wild. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing.
This place isn't for exploring. It's dangerous.
I should get going, I said nervously.
Why leave? It's quiet here.
He continued, inching closer.
People don't bother you.
Every instinct I had said to flee. I really have to go, I insisted, edging away. Then I heard it, a crunch of leaves behind me. Heart racing, I turned to see two more figures emerging from the trees, their expressions unreadable. Panic electrified my senses. I sprinted toward my car, fear propelling me faster than I thought possible. The keys fumbled in my trembling hands, but I managed to unlock the door. Sliding into the driver's seat, I looked up. The three figures stood silently, watching with blank faces. Heart pounding, I slammed the door, started the engine, and tore down the road, weaving through the maze of trees until the main highway unfolded before me like a lifeline. It wasn't until I reached the safety of a gas station, adrenaline still coursing through my veins, that I stopped to catch my breath. This detour had taught me a harsh lesson. Not all roads lead to safety, and some curiosities are better left unexplored.